Cara Quintero, he wasn't the only one. Do you believe that there are any other living co-conspirators? And will they be brought to justice?
Yes, there were others, and others have been indicted and are doing life terms. Yes.
But not for the murder of Kiki Camarena.
Yes, we have had people charged with Kiki Camarena. We have. And they were charged with this murder, and some of them are doing life terms to this date. However, like I said, Caro Quintero has never really been charged in the United States or ever been tried in the United States for Kiki's murder.
So if there are co-conspirators...
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll speak in definites. There are co-conspirators, but some of them, as you personally know, are in law enforcement, ex-law enforcement, were part of the CIA. Do you believe those individuals, and I know you said just a few minutes ago, if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Donald Trump. But some of these guys are long retired. They're gone. Do you believe any of those guys will be dug up and named as a co-conspirator?
I believe so. Even though they're retired, they're still alive. And remember, there's no statute of limitations on murder. So yeah, I believe they can be tried. Former CIA and DEA officials that were involved. The murder of Camarena was basically, it was covered up. It was a cover-up. They told me that the reason the drug lords had killed or kidnapped Kiki was because he was responsible for destroying the Caro Quintero's Buffalo Chihuahua fields, marijuana Chihuahua fields, and that's not true. That's not true. Kiki had very little to do with the destruction of the Buffalo Chihuahua fields. As a matter of fact, he wasn't one of the agents that raided the fields. He wasn't even there. Kiki's participation in that investigation was that he provided the pilot that overflew the marijuana fields, who photographed him, and Kiki got the negatives and developed them and sent them to Mexico City. That was his total involvement. I've heard the Camarena torture tapes where Caro Quintero and them asked him, what did you have to do with the Buffalo Fields? And he stated, I had nothing to do with it. I did not participate. And I know the agent that ran it, Charles Lugo, and he told me that Kiki had nothing to do with it. But yet I'm being told by the DEA that I'm supposed to investigate Caro Quintero because he kidnapped Camarena, because he was mad at him because Camarena had destroyed his Buffalo Chihuahua fields. And that's not true.
So why, in your opinion, would the CIA want to interrogate Kiki?
The CIA's involvement with the drug lords occurred back in 1980, 82, because they wanted to support the Contras who were fighting against the communist regime of Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua, because the Daniel Ortega communist regime had overthrown the Anastasio Somoza regiment in that country. So the Contras were fighting against the communist regime of Daniel Ortega. They went to the U.S., the Contras went to the U.S. and said, hey, give us a hand here. Help us finance this war. Give us weapons to fight against the communist regime of Daniel Ortega. The CIA and the DIA went to Congress and said, hey, we need money to fund the Contras so that they can fight communism in Nicaragua. Congress, through the Bolin Amendment, denied giving any military nor financial assistance to the Contras. Why? Because we had just come out of the Vietnam War where we got our butts kicked. And Congress did not want to get involved in another war. And they knew that the American people were not going to support another war, having just come out of the Vietnam War defeated. So therefore they said, no CIA, no, we're not going to basically give you any money to fund that war, nor are we going to put our military people in harm's way would go in and fight with the Contras against the communist regime of Daniel Ortega. So what happens then? Who's in charge of the CIA then? Old Man Bush. Old Man Bush had been in charge of the CIA, and now he was vice president. So then he decides, okay, we'll do it clandestinely. We'll do it secretly. So what do? They decide they're going to arm the Contras anyway and use the Mexican government to help them smuggle weapons through Mexico to the Contras in Nicaragua. So there's a meeting held with the Mexican government officials by then the Bush administration, where it is secretly agreed that Mexico cannot overtly help the CIA in its endeavor to arm the Contras, but they could do it secretly. And the way they would do it was for them, meaning our administration, the CIA, could become partners with the cartel guys because they had the routes. They had the planes, they had the landing strips, they had the whole routes that they could smuggle the weapons secretly to the Contras. And that's what happened. There was a marriage of the Guadalajara cartel being run by Rafael Caro Quintero, Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, and Miguel Felix Gallardo with our CIA. And they start running weapons through Mexico to the Contras. And they're using where? As a site? Caro Quintero's ranch in Veracruz. And what airlines are they using? Setco Airlines, owned by drug lord Mata Ballesteros. Okay? So now they've got Caro Quintero in their payroll, and they've got Mata Ballesteros also in their payroll because they're using his airlines, and they're using Caro Quintero's ranch as a point from where to smuggle the weapons south. What happens with time? They need money. So the CIA needs money to fund the war because Congress ain't funding it. So they become drug dealers. And they start bringing in drugs themselves. And they're using two Contra officials in LA, Edwin Menezes and Danilo Blandon, who are supplying tons of cocaine to Freeway Ricky Ross, who's selling the cocaine. And now they're using this money supposedly to fund the Contras who are fighting communism in Nicaragua. I just gave you the whole thing right there.
Got you. I mean, you just bring up a name that many viewers of this channel are very familiar with, Freeway Ricky Ross. I could have asked you this before, but have you ever met or had any dealings with Ricky Ross?
Yes, I know Ricky Ross personally. With him and I have talked. We have been basically interviewed together on numerous occasions. And Freeway Ricky Ross basically was set up by Danilo Blandon, who testified against him. Danilo Blandon, being the guy that was supplying him, basically never went to prison. And here, Freeway Ricky Ross was given a life sentence.
Yeah, we know that story very well. It's interesting that you guys have crossed paths, considering your life's work. Just moving this interview along, last year, and I'm wondering, are you familiar with this? Because we have spoken about Venezuela, we've spoken about Mexico, but last year, the ex-president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernández, was sentenced in a U.S. court to 45 years for aiding drug dealers. Are you familiar with that case?
Yes, I am.
What do you know about that case, and does it surprise you that a ex-president of a country would be aiding drug dealers?
It doesn't surprise me because Honduras, like Mexico, has been corrupt for years. When I was with the DEA, we had to basically do an exterritorial rendition on drug lord Juan Ramon, who I mentioned a little while ago, Mata Ballesteros. Mata Ballesteros was basically playing off all the government officials in Honduras, and the Honduras government would not basically turn him over to us where he was wanted for drug trafficking. So we went in and kidnapped him. And we brought him into the United States, where he's now facing a life sentence. So yes, for years, the Honduran government has been corrupt and undertake. As a matter of fact, when we kidnapped Juan Ramon Mata Ballesteros out of Tegucigalpa, Honduras, our embassy was burned to the ground as a protest for us kidnapping Juan Ramon Mata Ballesteros. So it doesn't surprise me that this last president, Hernandez, was convicted. And I believe that like he was convicted, I believe that numerous former presidents of Mexico are going to be tried and convicted also for taking bribes and being part of the cartel organizations.
Wouldn't that start a war? If it went that far, do you believe it would be a war between the two countries?
Absolutely not. Mexico cannot war against the United States, the government of Mexico. And the citizens of Mexico are great people. I love them. They're not going to go to war against us. Heck no. And not only that, if they can't control the damn cartels, or the dumb cartels, excuse me, you think they can fight us? They can't even fight the cartels in their own country. Least fight our SEALs and Marines and our great military that we have. There's no way. They would never go to war with us.